up, JP Nation? This your boy JP. Today we are reacting to Making the Case by Clayton Crawley. We are looking at the 1986 Boston Celtics, one of the greatest teams of all time. He's making the case of them being the greatest NBA team of all time. The reason we're doing this is because we are celebrating a legend's birthday that happened the other day. One Mr. Larry Joe Bird, aka Larry Legend, who turned 66. Happy birthday to the great Larry Bird, one of the greatest players of all time. And we are going to do a little reaction video right here in honor of his birthday. Before I get into it, make sure you subscribe down below to ItzJustJP for more basketball content. Click the notification bell, you know when our next upload is. Make sure you like this video at the end. Make sure you let me know what you want me to react to next. Comment down below if you think the 86 Celtics is the greatest team of all time, or any takeaways you got from the video. Or if you have a team in mind who's the greatest team of all time, please comment down below. Or anything the 86 Boston Celtics, just please. And give Larry Bird a shout out and a happy birthday too as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video.
What's the goal of basketball? To win, right? But not just to win individual games. The ultimate goal is to win a championship. Of course, basketball is a team sport. Championships are won by the most complete, most inspired team. Every champion deserves credit, but the question on my mind is, who's the greatest team of all time? With apologies to Bill and Wilt, I have a list of 8 teams since 1970 that I want to look at as having a claim to that distinction. It is a loaded question, and one that I ultimately can't answer. Is it the teams that were front runners from beginning to end? The ones who were unbeatable at their peak? Maybe the ones who tapped into something special and overcame countless obstacles. There is no right answer. It's your job to make your own call. And it's my job to make the case. So today, I'll be making the case for the 1986 Boston Celtics as the greatest basketball team of all time.
Happy birthday, Larry Bird. 86 Celtics, man. I'm ready, man. I'm ready. They were a hell of a team, too.
Some quick background. In the 1985 NBA Finals, the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Celtics behind the heroic efforts of Magic Johnson and Finals MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It was the first time in history that the Lakers had defeated the Celtics in the Finals, going back as far as 1959. In the ensuing offseason, the Celtics made key roster moves, licked their wounds, then rattled off a league-high 67 wins on their way to raising the franchise's 16th championship banner. Their 67-15 record stands as the best record in Celtics history.
Man, look at the numbers.
Their 15-3 playoff record serves as a testament to their aptitude on both ends of the court.
Man,
they trotted out the original Big Three of Robert Parish, Kevin McHale, and the immortal Larry Bird.
I mean, just look at the roster. I mean, man, just look at the roster. You know, Larry Bird, you know, who was like in his prime, won his 3rd straight MVP that year. Kevin McHale, don't really get a lot of credit. He's one of the greatest power forwards of all time, man. He had them low post moves for days, man. Like, you be shaking when he gets the ball right there in that post. Robert Parish, the Chief, man. Defensive anchor, being able to be part of that team and being able to contribute and have an impact too as well. That Big Three was just unbelievable. Dennis Johnson, rest in peace, man. Hell of a ball player, man. Facilitator, could score the basketball. Like, he got that mid-range too as well. Like, he was just a hell of Danny Ainge, man, just shoots that ball. He's like a pest, pretty much. They added Bill Walton, who was the Finals MVP in 1977 from the Portland Trail Blazers, who injuries kind of, you know, derailed his career and everything, though. But, like, you know, coming into the Celtics, man, was just a hell of a move and everything. One of the, you know, best, greatest college players of all time. If you don't know how bad of a dude Bill Walton was in college and when he was with the Blazers, please check him out. Please check him out, though. Oh, Rick Carlisle, look at it. Shout out to Rick Carlisle right there. Scott Wedman, okay. Yeah, they had a hell of a team, so.
Dynamic backcourt of Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge, and boasted a talented bench anchored by former league MVP Bill Walton. Now, before we go any further, I want to reach out to some of you out there. Some of you might be a little jaded about this team, and that's because some of the most prominent and influential figures in sports media were around for and swear by this team. Your Bill Simmons, your Jackie McMullins, your Bob Bryans, they all have a connection to this squad in some way or another, so the discourse around the '86 Celtics has always had a certain amount of Boston-centric bias.
There we go.
I want you to know that I have no such bias. I was born and raised in Kansas. I don't give a shit about Boston.
Wow.
Dunkin' Donuts can go to hell as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
And I'm here to tell you that just because those writers were a little bit biased doesn't mean that they're wrong. With that said, where else do we start with the '86 Celtics than with Larry Bird?
Happy birthday.
1986 saw Bird take home his third straight MVP, joining the historic company of just Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. Never before had a forward submitted a better season than Bird's 7th campaign. He slapped up a 26, 10, and 7 and was decimal points away from submitting a 50-40 season. The man had a superlative basketball IQ and remains, for my money, the clutchest player to ever put leather through nylon. He had a blend of all-around skills that began garnering him GOAT talk from people like Bob Cousy and Jerry West. His tenacity on the boards defied his 6'9" frame. His creativity was tantamount to Tesla, and his infectious passing gave the team an identity that remains as impressive and timeless now, some 35 years later, as it was back then. He finished the season ranked 7th in rebounds, 4th in points, 13th in assists, 8th in steals, and 2nd in minutes played. So elevated was his level of play that he admitted to getting bored in games and looking for ways to entertain himself, like taking increasingly ridiculous shots or playing portions of games left-handed.
Sorry, Portland.
At the other forward spot was Kevin McHale. After back-to-back 6th Man of the Year awards as a super sub, '86 was McHale's first season as a starter, and he immediately began producing at an all-NBA level. With his 6'10" height and unsettlingly long limbs, McHale earned a reputation as one of the great two-way players in the league. Defensively, he was mobile and springy enough to move with quicker swingmen, while being long and strong enough to contest interior scorers. Offensively, there's a reason that Olajuwon and McHale are the two names that get mentioned whenever someone talks about post players. Opponents trapped in McHale's torture chamber were subjected to an array of moves that left them confounded, wondering where on earth the man went and how the hell he'd gotten there. You never knew what he was going to throw at you. He'd combine fakes into an up and under, pivot into an uncontestable fall-away, or whatever else struck his fancy. It's still striking to see him twist and wind through defenders with his moves the same way Kyrie Irving splits defenders with his handle. Averaging 21 points and 8 rebounds a game on an otherworldly 57% field goal percentage, McHale was a luxury for Boston. He would take on the toughest defensive assignment, allowing Bird to roam, and scored with enough efficiency and volume that his counterpart never had to carry the full offensive burden. Rounding out the big three was the man in the middle,
the Chief,
Robert Parish. As the unsung hero of the team, Parish doesn't get talked about nearly as much as Bird and McHale, but make no mistake, the Chief was dangerous. Keeping in mind that these stats don't include Bill Russell because of the lack of recorded statistics, Parish is still the Celtics' all-time leader in offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, blocks, and is still the NBA's leader in games played. You could rely on Chief for 16 and 10 with Duncan-esque consistency. The man was always in shape and feasted on opposing defenses simply by outrunning them. God only knows how many points he scored because he hustled his way down the court, setting up easy outlet passes. He shot well from the field, was a good free throw shooter, had a reliable jumper, defended, rebounded, set Steven Adams-like picks, and did all the little things. There wasn't a ton of room for heroics on such a loaded roster, so you couldn't count on Parish jumping out at you with a 39-point game, but he embraced being the third option the same way Scottie Pippen embraced being the second.
They play like a team.
Never forget that Robert Parish held his own in the age of giants against Ralph Sampson, Olajuwon, Kareem, Moses, Ewing, and the rest of them. At point guard was Dennis Johnson, one of the most underrated players ever. That's a video for another time, though.
In peace.
For the Celtics, DJ fulfilled his role as the best defensive guard of his era. With 9 straight all-defensive selections from 79 to 87, only Kobe made more all-defensive teams as a guard. He was the best matchup on Magic of any player in the league, set the table for everyone on his team, and consistently came through in money time.
Yes. Yes, he was clutch.
He and Bird had what some refer to as a telepathic connection, making tight wire action between them routine. He was the ringleader of the squad, and Bird still calls him the best player he ever played.
Their connection was just...
At the other guard was Danny Ainge, a reliable double-digit scorer and wily little rascal that thrived on rising up the opposition and getting under their skin. Ainge was also one of the great shooters of the era, and went on to demolish the single-season three-point record in 1988. A talented multi-sport athlete, Ainge remains the only high schooler to be named a first-team All-American in football, baseball, and basketball.
That's incredible, too.
And coming off the bench was the Celtics' secret weapon, Bill Walton. Drafted first overall by the Portland Trail Blazers in 1974, Walton had a transcendent stretch of basketball in the late 70s, guiding the Blazers to the NBA championship in 77 and winning league MVP in 78. Injuries derailed his career at the end of his 78 season, though, and he played in just 14 games over the next 4 seasons.
Wow.
By 86, Walton was a liability and a shell of the player he once was. Looking for redemption and one more chance to be a part of something special, he called Red Auerbach to see if the Celtics would be interested in trading for him. The deal went through, though health still remained the biggest question on everyone's mind. Could his body withstand the grueling championship campaign these Celtics were setting out on? Well, in the 100 games that the Celtics played that season, Walton played in 96 of them.
Wow!
He won the 6th Man of the Year award thanks to his size, smarts, rebounding ability, and defensive instincts. He was still every bit of the best passing big man ever, and found a kindred spirit in Bird, who also reveled in elevating the talent level of his teammates and in the fine details of basketball. To boot, Walton added an Andy Bernard dynamic to the team. He had had his good old days and seen them drain through his fingers. Yet here he was, once again, with a chance to be a part of something historic, completely aware and appreciative of the fact that this was and would always be the good old days of Celtics basketball. In all, the roster touted 5 Hall of Famers. 5. The whole lineup.
5.
And every starter on the team was a double-digit scorer. They gelled together to form a hive mind presence, assimilating into nothing short of Bird's brainchild. If Bird were cutting, DJ would put the ball where it was supposed to be the second it was supposed to be.
What a pass.
If McHale was rolling on some poor soul in the post and got doubled, Ainge would be in the perfect place for a kickout. Parish got open down the court. You could bet that the ball would find him. Emulating Bird's all-around prowess, the Celtics could beat you in any which way. Whatever you did, they did better. If you had a speedy, heady guard, you had the pleasure of being locked down by Dennis Johnson. If your calling card was your big men, you had to contend with the greatest front court of all time. Not razor sharp defensively, the hive mind will beat you into a pulp with their passing. Your offense isn't clicking on every conceivable cylinder. You would be swarmed, you would turn the ball over, and every shot you took would be smothered. And if you let the game stay close down the stretch, Larry Bird would put the nails in your coffin. They had answers for everything. They could change their style of play on a whim and excel at it. Bird, Ainge, and backup point guard Jerry Seasting were all dead-eye shooters. The big men were some of the best post players to ever play. They could put out an absolutely massive lineup with Bird at the 2, McHale at the 3, and Parish and Walton in the middle. They could go small with no loss of quality with McHale at center and Bird at the 4. Craziest of all, they really wouldn't even need to size up or size down. The 86 Celtics are still one of the only teams in history to be able to play a small ball style with a gargantuan starting lineup. Everyone was mobile enough to push the pace and stay active. Their inside-outside proficiency could space the floor. They could defend and corral nearly all types of scorers, and their passing would carve defenses to shreds, all without giving up an inch. And if we're checking boxes, the Boston Garden in the 1980s was the best home court in sports. Already some 50 years old, the dingy dungeon halls of the Garden had been host to some of the greatest players and moments in sports history, offering comfort to its allies and peril to its enemies. The crowd was insatiable and earned a reputation for both their devotion and potential for viciousness. The rafters were littered with championship banners and retired numbers in such quantity that they became superfluous. The Celtics took advantage of this and ran with it, notching a 50-1 home run.
Oh, dang! Wow, 50-1. Wow. Oh, man, like, ooh, wow, that is just insane. 50-1. Wow. Wow, I gotta rewind that again. Wow, 50-1. Boy, they were no joke at home. Man.
Quantity that they became superfluous. The Celtics took advantage of this and ran with it, notching a 50-1 home record, including the playoffs.
Wow.
Were they perfect? No. They weren't that athletic, and they had a tendency every now and then to get bored and take their foot off the gas into bad teams. Could they have gotten to 70 or even 72 wins? Sure, and you can hold that against them.
What a pass.
But tell me, when we're talking about something as grand as the greatest team of all time, how much do those 3 to 5 regular season games really matter? As we established in the beginning of the video, the Celtics lost the '85 finals to the Lakers for the first time in franchise history. The loss stung deep, and members of the team still believe that they let the series get away from them. With a newfound inspiration and the drive to reclaim what they believed was theirs, they tore through the league with one team in mind. The rivalry between the Celtics and the Lakers should need no background. Since the days of Jerry West and Elgin Baylor competing against Bill Russell and Bob Cousy, the two franchises have defined the NBA within and without. Today, the two franchises account for nearly half of all championships in NBA history. And the rivalry was never more intense than in the 80s, as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird presented their teams and their sport to the world.
Great time.
Since their iconic college basketball championship showdown, the two had assumed the role as battling titans, trading blows with one another, daring to push the boundaries of basketball to fit their own needs and desires. No pass was too extraordinary, no shot too outrageous. And after the Lakers had landed such a damaging blow in the finals, Bird and the Celtics were eager to return the favor. In the two regular season matchups between the two squads, the Celtics came away with victories both times against the defending champs. And while they no doubt enjoyed the bragging rights that this afforded them, their true crusade began in the playoffs. In round one, they found themselves matched up with the 40-win Chicago Bulls and an extraordinary young guard named Michael Jordan.
63 points.
Having missed most of the season with an injured foot, Jordan was eager to assert himself and unleash his latent talents. He did just that. After a 49-point performance in Game 1, Jordan put on a spectacle in Game 2 by setting the NBA record for most points in a single playoff
Still to this day.
63. Bird famously described the effort as God disguised as Michael Jordan. It
Coming
was
out
a glimpse
party.
into the future of the NBA and a coming out party for the league's next great star. Ultimately for the series, though, it didn't even matter. The Celtics won both games. Not even such an extraordinary performance as Jordan's was enough to dent the armor of the Celtics, who then won Game 3 to sweep the series. And after killing God, I can't say that. In the next round, Boston was faced with MVP runner-up and the league's leading scorer, Dominique Wilkins, and his Atlanta Hawks. Though the Celtics had won all 4 of the regular season matchups with the Hawks, each contest was decided in the single digits, and most had come down to the final moments. Dominique represented Bird's toughest matchup in the East, with his boundless athleticism and potential for incredible outbursts. The Celtics succeeded in containing him for the most part, though, putting up walls to the lane and closing out on his jump shots. Though they were competitive through the first 3 games, the Hawks were at the mercy of the Celtics and found themselves down 3-0. With Game 4 in Atlanta and a series victory for Boston all but certain, Wilkins and backup point guard Spud Webb caught the Celtics with their foot off the gas, combining for 58 points and denying them a 4-game sweep. Back in Beantown for Game 5, Bird and company took the opportunity to remind the Hawks, themselves, and the league that this was their year. In one of the great statement games in playoff history, Boston turned an 11-point halftime lead into a 33-point punctuated by an absurd third quarter in which the Celtics outscored the Hawks 36-6.
Wow!
Defense turned into offense. Offense turned into more offense. And by the end of the period, the crowd was bursting with supreme confidence in their team.
They just can't believe what has happened to them.
Man.
The Celtics were a team of destiny, and the Garden knew it. Boston then easily dispatched a 57-win Bucks team in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Another great team.
Though in fairness, Sidney Moncrief had sustained a hobbling foot injury earlier in the playoffs.
Sidney Moncrief
He missed Game 1 and was ultimately held in check by the Celtics, who took the series in 4 games. Would a healthy Moncrief have made a difference? Unquestionable.
Marcus Johnson.
Would the Celtics have swept the Bucks? I think it's unlikely. But would they still have won the series and advanced to their 3rd straight finals? Yes. In any case, the Celtics were now 4 wins away from capturing their championship and submitting their application to the all-time team discussion. All they needed was a worthy opponent. And they got one. Though it wasn't the one they were expecting.
Not the Lakers.
That's because the defending champion Lakers had been upset in just 5 games by the upstart Houston Rockets and their mammoth
Twin
combination
Towers.
of big men, 7'4" Ralph Sampson and 7-foot Akeem Olajuwon. And they intended to prove that their victory over the Lakers had been no fluke. After 2 Celtic victories in Boston, the series moved to Houston for the next 3 games. Here, the Rockets put their foot down and showed a resilience not yet seen against these Celtics, earning the respect of the basketball-watching public. They won Game 3 by 2 points, helped in large part to Sampson's 24-point, 22-rebound performance. Still against the ropes, though, they faltered in Game 4, suffering a 3-point defeat. With a 3-1 series lead through the first 4 games, the Celtics were on the brink of their destiny. They've been able to mitigate the Rockets' size advantage on the boards, though the 23-year-old Olajuwon had succeeded in making himself known as an intimidating and impressive young talent. With Boston looking to close out their season with a championship in Game 5, Olajuwon played an inspired game with 34 points, 14 rebounds, and 8 blocks. The Rockets won and ensured that no championship would be hoisted on Houston's home floor, but not before damning their championship chances. Just into the second quarter of the game, Sampson had gotten a mismatch on 6'1" Jerry Seasting. After some pushing and jostling for position, Sampson turned around and delivered 2 quick, heavy blows to Seasting, igniting a bench-clearing altercation. Sampson was subsequently ejected from the game, though Olajuwon did carry the Rockets to a victory and forced a trip back to Boston. The Celtics were pissed. They were pissed that they'd let that game get away from them. They were pissed that they'd let Houston keep the series alive. And they were pissed that Sampson had squared off against a player over whom he had a 15-inch height advantage. At practice the day before Game 6, the players worked themselves into such a feverish lather, playing with so much physicality, that head coach Casey Jones had to call off practice.
Wow.
The Garden was no different. The fans were delirious, setting a new kind of record for malevolent trash talk, with most of their attention focused on the imposing Rockets center. The team and their fans wanted to win, to claim their rightful place at the height of the sport, and they wanted to make the Rockets regret the day they ever messed with the Boston Celtics. And the instrument for that righteous fury was none other than Larry Bird. For one game, Larry Bird played a different sport, in what has been described and immortalized in many different ways as the greatest game he ever played. At first glance, you notice his box score wasn't all that sensational. 29 points, 11 rebounds, 12 assists on 47%.
Damn!
He didn't score 60, it wasn't a near quadruple-double, and he hit no buzzer beaters. But you only have to watch the game to see that he was, in classic Bird fashion, everywhere, doing everything, at all times. Disrupting passing lanes, finding his teammates, even winning a jump ball against Olajuwon.
Oh, wow.
He was the king, and basketball was his kingdom. The Celtics walked out with a comfortable 17-point victory as world champions, with Bird remarking himself that it was the best performance of his career, the only one that he ever felt totally prepared for. Afterwards, Red Auerbach blessed the team as one of, if not the, greatest he'd ever seen.
Huge compliment. Huge
Take
compliment.
one of the most talented starting fives ever, composed of the greatest front court of all time, with the greatest forward tandem to ever play basketball, and watch them eviscerate their opponents with stifling two-way play, dazzling passes, suffocating defense, exquisite shooting, and sublime post play. They win more games than have ever been won by their illustrious club, and proceed to rampage their way to a championship, culminating in the best game in the career of one of basketball's most brilliant talents. The Boston Garden stands no more. Demolished in 1998 after 70 years of service and replaced with a building with air conditioning. I'll never get to see it, never get to ask the walls my questions, nor gag down a Sam Adams surrounded by insufferable Boston sports fans. Among the distinguished teams that called the parquet floor home, one stands alone. And if those walls were still around, if that floor could talk, I know what I'd ask them. And I think I already know the answer they'd give. They'd tell me that the 1986 Boston Celtics were the greatest basketball team of all time.
And man, great breakdown from Clayton Crawley right here about the 86 Boston Celtics. Man, one of the greatest teams of all time, man, leading by Larry Bird. Once again, happy birthday to Larry Bird, who was on a mission that year after losing to the Lakers in the 85 finals. And he was just on a mission that year. And then with that team was just so good, you know. Like, you just watch those videos, they were just passing the ball. They played like a team. They were passing the ball, man. It was just like a high IQ team, you know. IQ, you know, everybody talk about skill sets and everything, but when you have an IQ of the game, it will go way far than you expected and all that, you know. So, but man, you know, with Larry and then Kevin McHale being a starter that year and just tearing it up in the low post and playing defense. Robert Parish doing his thing defensively and rebounding to us and hustling. Bill Walton winning 6th Man of the Year, doing, you know, scoring and passing the ball and playing defense. Danny Ainge being a pass but shooting the ball. Dennis Johnson just doing everything. Like, that Celtic team was just dangerous that year. They were dangerous. 50-1 at home. 50-1 at home. That is just unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And, you know, I wish that we could have had the Lakers in that NBA Finals. I would love to see that. Even though they won in the regular season, the Celtics did. But I would love to see what they would have done in the NBA Finals. But, you know, hey, Houston was a nice team, though, with Olajuwon and Sampson and Twin Towers. They were, you know, young, and they were, you know, they wanted to prove themselves. And, man, just that 86 Celtic team, man. Larry Bird called it the greatest team he ever played with. He thinks it's the greatest team of all time. But, man, wow. I mean, that was just a great breakdown and everything. I definitely will watch it again, you know, because it was just a great breakdown, and it just tells you how great the 86 Celtics were as a basketball team. And, again, a huge compliment from Red Auerbach putting the team together, saying this is the greatest team he ever seen. That's just huge at the end of the day. So, but definitely happy birthday, Larry Bird. Definitely comment down below and tell me, do you think the 86 Celtics is the greatest team of all time? If not, who you think is the greatest team of all time? And if you have any thoughts on the 86 Celtics, and give a shout out to Larry Bird and give him a happy birthday. And let me know what you may react to next. Subscribe to ItzJustJP for more basketball content. Click the notification bell. You know when my next upload is. On the road to 10K. Make sure you like this video at the end. I'm JP. Y'all have a blessed night. Peace.